My name is Daniel Reed, and what I'm about to tell you happened 2 years ago when I first moved to London. It wasn't supposed to be anything special, just a fresh start. After losing my job back home in Manchester, I landed a remote design position with a London firm. The only problem was rent. Everything in the city was too expensive. So when I found a small one-bedroom flat on Holloway Road, listed at half the market price, I didn't hesitate. The landlord's name was Mr. Collins, an older man, polite, soft-spoken, maybe in his late 60s. He showed me around the flat, plain white walls, wooden floors, a single large window facing the street. It smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals, but also something old, like damp paper and perfume. This place used to belong to a young lady, Mr. Collins said, jingling the keys. She moved out last year. Been empty since I didn't think much of it. Everyone moves. But now I sometimes wonder if that was the first lie. That first night I unpacked my boxes and opened a beer to celebrate. The traffic outside was constant, but somehow comforting. London felt alive and and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Around midnight, I turned off the lights and went to bed. Just as I was drifting off, I heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping from somewhere inside the flat. Not the radiator, not the pipes. It sounded deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. I sat up listening. After a few seconds, it stopped. I told myself it was the wind and went back to sleep. The next morning, when I opened the mailbox downstairs, there was a single envelope wedged inside. It wasn't addressed to me. It was for Claire Hastings. I thought, maybe she was the previous tenant. I placed it on the small hallway table, planning to hand it to the landlord later. But that letter would be the first of many. For the next few days, life settled into routine. I worked from home, explored the city, tried new coffee shops. Every night I came back to my quiet flat and felt lucky to have it. Until the third night. I was up late working on a project. Around 2 a.m., I got up to stretch and glanced toward the hallway mirror near the door. Something caught my eye. A reflection that didn't make sense. For a split second, I thought I saw someone standing in the hallway behind me, a woman just outside the bedroom door. When I turned around, there was no one. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding. It had to be the mirror, or maybe I was just tired. But I couldn't shake the image, the dark hair, the pale skin, the faint outline of a woman in a light blue dress. That night, I slept with the lights on. 3 days later, I received another letter. Same name, Claire Hastings. Different handwriting, same address. This time I noticed something strange. The return address was only a few streets away in Islington. Out of curiosity, I looked it up online, but the address didn't exist. No house, no business, nothing. Just an empty lot. That's when I emailed Mr. Collins. I told him I was getting mail for the previous tenant and asked if he could forward it. He replied within minutes. Strange. There shouldn't be any. Claire's records were all cleared when she left. Just discard anything that arrives. I almost did. But instead, I left the envelope on the table again. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see if more would come. A week later, I got home from the grocery store and found the letter missing. Not moved, not misplaced. Gone. I live alone, Daniel thought. I locked the door that morning. There were no signs of a break-in. Everything else was exactly where I'd left it. For the first time, the flat didn't feel safe. That night, I heard it again. The tapping. Only this time, it was louder. Tap, tap, tap. From the hallway, then from the bedroom wall. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and slowly opened the door. Nothing. But the smell, that same perfume from before, sweet, floral, old-fashioned, it filled the air as if someone had just walked through. I left the lights on all night again, and I remember thinking, maybe I should move. The next morning, I noticed something else. The mirror in the hallway had shifted slightly. Not much, just a few inches off center, but I hadn't touched it since I moved in. When I tried to realign it, the bottom edge scraped against the wall, and I heard something hollow behind it. A small gap. I pulled the mirror off, revealing a shallow recess in the wall. Inside was a single folded piece of paper. It was another letter. No envelope, no stamp, just folded neatly. On the front, in elegant handwriting, for Daniel. My stomach dropped. I opened it, hands shaking. I'm still here. Don't let him rent it again. No signature, just those words. I stared at it for minutes, trying to breathe. Who was him? Who wrote this? Was someone playing a prank? I rushed downstairs and called Mr. Collins. No answer. Straight to voicemail. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on work. Every sound in the flat made me jump. Every reflection in that mirror felt wrong. By evening, I'd made up my mind. I was going to spend the night at a friend's place. But as I started packing, there was a sudden, sharp knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. I froze. No one should have been there. I hadn't ordered anything. The hallway light outside was motion sensitive. If someone was standing there, I should have seen their shadow under the door. But there was nothing. The knocking came again, 3 times, softer this time. I forced myself to look through the peephole. Empty hallway. And then, faintly, I heard a woman's voice right outside the door. Daniel, please don't go. My heart stopped. It was soft, almost pleading. I stepped back, trembling, staring at the door. I didn't open it. I couldn't. The next thing I remember was sitting on the floor, shaking. As the sound faded away, I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I packed a small bag and went straight to a cafe down the street. I texted Mr. Collins again, asking to meet. He finally replied around noon. Come by the office at 3 p.m. We should talk. I didn't tell him about the voice. I didn't tell him about the letter behind the mirror, but part of me already knew. Whatever happened to Claire Hastings, it hadn't really ended. It was on. I reached Mr. Collins' office exactly at 3. It was on the 2nd floor of an old brick building near Highbury and Islington Station. The kind of place that still had frosted glass doors and brass nameplates from the 1970s. When I walked in, he was sitting behind a cluttered desk, stacked with paper files, a kettle humming quietly behind him. He looked surprised to see me, almost nervous. Daniel, he said, forcing a smile. You look pale. Everything all right with the flat? I took a deep breath. Not really. I've been getting letters. For someone named Claire Hastings, and last night, I think someone was at my door. His smile faded. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. I was hoping this wouldn't happen again, he whispered. Again? I asked. What do you mean? Mr. Collins sighed and poured 2 cups of tea. His hands trembled slightly. Claire Hastings was the tenant before you, he said slowly. She lived there for about 6 months. Quiet girl, graphic designer like yourself. Paid on time, but she... He stopped, looked at the window. She disappeared, Daniel. Completely. Police searched the flat, her office, everything. No trace. My mouth went dry. Disappeared? When? 18 months ago. She told me she was taking a weekend trip. Never came back. He slid open a drawer and took out a thin folder. Inside were a few photocopies. Newspaper clippings, police forms, a single photograph. Claire Hastings. I froze. She looked exactly like the reflection I'd seen that night in the mirror. Dark hair, pale skin, light blue dress. I pushed the photo away. "Mr. Collins, I found a note hidden behind the mirror. It said, 'I'm still here. Don't let him rent it again.'" He stared at me, his face drained of color. "You found it?" "Yes, why would she write that?" He hesitated. "After she vanished, the police said there was no sign of foul play, but I always thought—" He lowered his voice. "Her boyfriend, Evan? He used to visit her at the flat. I saw them argue more than once. After she went missing, he vanished too." I leaned back, trying to process. "So you think, what? He did something to her?" Mr. Collins didn't answer. He just looked at me with eyes that suddenly seemed much older. That night, I couldn't go back to the flat. I walked aimlessly around King's Cross, the rain turning the pavement silver. Every reflection in a window made me think I'd see her face again. Around midnight, I finally returned. The hallway light outside my door flickered as I climbed the stairs. When I reached the landing, I froze. Someone had slid another envelope under my door. This one wasn't white. It was yellowed, old, the edges brittle. Across the front, in that same delicate handwriting, "For Daniel. Please listen." I opened it with shaking hands. "He still lives there." In the walls. "Don't stay after midnight." I dropped the paper and stepped back. The hallway suddenly felt smaller, colder. I could hear a faint hum coming from inside the flat, as if a low voice was whispering behind the door. Against every instinct, I unlocked it and stepped in. The lights were off, but the air was thick with that same sweet perfume. I turned on my phone's flashlight. Everything looked normal: the couch, my desk, the mirror back on the wall. And then I saw the floor. Right in front of the bedroom door, someone had drawn a faint circle in chalk. Inside it, the words, 12:04 a.m. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, watching the clock tick toward midnight. At 12:01, nothing. 12:02, silence. 12:03, my phone flickered. 12:04, the tapping started again. This time it wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from inside the bedroom closet. I forced myself to stand. The tapping grew louder, faster, desperate. I gripped the closet handle and yanked it open. Empty. Only my coats hanging there. But behind them, the wall looked wrong. Like the plaster had been cut and resealed. A thin crack ran vertically from ceiling to floor. I pressed my ear against it. Whispering, a woman's voice, muffled, trembling. "Help me." I stumbled back, heart hammering. Every rational part of me screamed to run, to get out, but my body wouldn't move. Then suddenly the whisper stopped, and from behind the wall came a single deep male voice. "You shouldn't be here." I bolted. I spent the night at a 24-hour cafe near Camden. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, imagination, something. But when I returned later that day, the chalk circle was gone. And so was the letter. Only the faint perfume remained. I called the landlord again. No answer. I texted him, "I need to talk. Something's wrong in that flat." No reply. That evening, I got a message from an unknown number. "Stop talking to Collins. You're next." No name, no ID, just those 4 words. 2 days later, I went to the police. I told them about the missing tenant, the letters, the voice, the message. They listened politely, took notes, and finally, one of them, a young officer, looked up. "Sir, are you aware this property has been vacant for over a year?" "What?" I blinked. "No, I've been living there for weeks." He turned his monitor toward me. On the screen was the property record.